Welcome to another episode of the Ginger ROAMance. Here, you'll hear anonymous stories from travellers all over the world. Real submissions from real people. Tales of connection, romance, passion, heartbreak, friendship, and love in all its forms. Because every kind of love deserves to be told. This week on the Ginger ROAMance, we share a huge mistake set in Paros, Greece. This is a travel romance story about timing, emotional baggage, and why getting under someone new isn't always the way to move on. Let's get into it. I booked the trip maybe 3 months after the breakup. We'd been together for 11 years, so I was learning how to be single again for the first time in a long time. Booking the trip wasn't impulsive, but it also wasn't well thought out. It was more like I needed to not be in my apartment anymore. Everything there still felt like us. Same couch, same coffee mugs, same stupid routine I didn't have anymore. So I picked Paros. No real reason other than I'd seen photos of it looking relaxed but still social. Not as chaotic as Mykonos, not as sleepy as some of the other islands. It felt like a middle ground, which honestly is exactly where I thought I was emotionally. I told myself this trip wasn't about meeting anyone. It was about being alone, resetting, and figuring out who I was again. But also, I packed outfits that said otherwise. The first couple of days were really good. Slow mornings, swims, wandering through little streets with no real plan. I felt lighter than I had in months. And then I met him. I was at this beach bar, sitting on one of those low chairs, half in the sand, half out, drinking something overpriced and pretending to read. He asked if the seat next to me was taken. I shook my head and gestured for him to take a seat. I tried to play it cool, casually taking slow sips of my cocktail, still pretending to read, while being hyper-aware of sucking in my stomach and angling my legs in a way that felt feminine, I guess. Attractive. Ridiculous, honestly. I kept peeking at him through the sides of my sunglasses, trying to get a better look without making it obvious. He was annoyingly attractive. Tall, lean but solid, like he actually used his body for something. Suntanned skin, golden hair that looked like it had been lightened by the sea, and abs that genuinely made me laugh to myself. Like, of course. Of course this man, on a Greek island, had abs like a Greek god. It almost felt too on the nose. He must have sensed that I was checking him out, as he struck up a conversation with me. We started talking in that easy holiday way where everything feels a bit more interesting than it probably is. He was travelling solo too, from somewhere in Europe, and had this really grounded energy. Calm but not boring, attentive but not intense. And at first, it felt safe. We spent that afternoon together, then dinner, then the next day as well. It just kind of rolled on without needing to define anything. And I remember thinking, this is perfect. This is exactly what people mean when they talk about a holiday romance. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people enjoying each other in a place that doesn't belong to either of them. But the cracks started earlier than I expected. It was small things at first. The way he phrased something, or how long he took to reply to a message, or even just the tone in his voice. None of it was actually wrong, but my brain kept filling in the gaps. I'd catch myself thinking, my ex would have said that differently, or this is how it started last time. It was like I wasn't actually with him. I was with this version of him that kept overlapping with my past. I tried to ignore it. I kept telling myself, this is casual. You're not here to build anything. just enjoy it. But I couldn't stay in that mindset. One night we were out at a bar and everything should have been fun. Music, people dancing, that warm night air where everything feels a bit softer. But I remember standing there next to him and feeling off, disconnected, but also overly aware. He put his arm around me at one point, and instead of leaning into it, I kind of froze. Not visibly, but internally, because it felt familiar in a way that wasn't comforting. It felt like stepping back into something I hadn't actually healed from. And then I started overthinking everything. If he didn't text in the morning, I noticed. If he seemed distracted, I noticed. If he didn't say something reassuring, I felt it. Which made no sense, because this wasn't a relationship. It wasn't supposed to carry that weight, but I was bringing that weight anyway. There was one afternoon that really made it clear for me. We were sitting by the water, not really talking, just being there. And I remember looking at him and thinking, I don't even know if I actually like you, or if I just don't want to feel alone. That thought hit harder than anything else. Because up until then, I'd been framing it as something light and fun. But underneath, it wasn't light at all. It was tangled up in everything I hadn't processed yet. I was comparing him constantly, not even consciously half the time, just automatic. And he could probably feel it too, even if he didn't say it outright. The dynamic shifted. It wasn't as easy anymore. Conversations felt slightly forced. There was this underlying tension that hadn't been there at the start. We had a small disagreement one night. Nothing major, but the way I reacted, it wasn't about him. I got defensive and emotional, almost like I was arguing with someone else entirely. And halfway through it, I realised what I was doing. I wasn't responding to him. I was reacting to my ex. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't ready for this, not even for something casual. The idea that you can just detach and have a no-feelings situation, I think that only works when you're actually clear within yourself. And I wasn't. I was still carrying too much. We ended things quietly. No drama, just a conversation where we both kind of acknowledged that it wasn't working the way it started. And after that, I spent the rest of my trip mostly on my own again. But it felt different from the beginning. Heavier, but also more honest. I stopped pretending I was further along than I actually was. I let myself feel the breakup properly instead of trying to shortcut it with distractions. And the biggest thing I realised was this. Getting over someone by getting under someone else, it doesn't erase anything. It just delays it. Or worse, it brings it up in ways you can't control. I've had holiday romances since then. Really good ones. Light, fun, genuinely enjoyable. But the difference was timing. This one wasn't a mistake because of him. He was actually decent. It was a mistake because of where I was. I wasn't ready to be in anything, even something casual. And instead of helping me move on, it just made everything louder. That's where the story ends, but not where my thoughts do. There's this idea we sell ourselves that casual means emotionally neutral. But casual doesn't cancel out attachment. It just removes the structure that normally keeps it in check. And if anything, that can make it messier. What stood out to me is how convincing it can be when we're trying to override where we're actually at. She knew something felt off, but still, she tried to label it as casual, just so she didn't have to sit in the grief. And that's the trap, because when you're not honest about your emotional state, you don't get something light and fun. You get something confusing and heavy. So maybe the real question is, how often are we calling something casual when it's actually just avoidance in a better outfit? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in next week's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure you're following along to keep up to date with weekly stories that will inspire, entertain, and maybe even make you fall in love with the idea of love itself. Got your own romance story and want to be a part of the Ginger Romance community? Check the notes for details on how to submit your own.